Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, August 31st, 2020. As you can see, Phoebe has joined us right away. Look how cute she's being right now. For anybody who it's their first time here checking out the stream, my name's Tristan Johnson. I'm the host of the YouTube channels Step Back History and Tristan Won't Shut Up, which are available at stepbackhistory.com and tristanwon'tshutup.com. My streaming schedule is, and this is all Eastern time, by the way, Monday from 12 to 2, Tuesdays from 7 to 10, and Fridays from 2 to 5. So I should mention Mondays is what we're watching right now, which is the Monday Discourse, which is a show I do with Mia Mulder. Mia Mulder's actually having some maintenance done on her apartment today, so she will not be here today, sadly. She'll be back for the next Monday Discourse. And Tuesdays, we do a sort of evening show called Step Back Tonight. Much more chill, much more, probably close to what we're going to do today, honestly. And Fridays, I do the Reactor, where you guys send me content and we watch it together and we learn and we laugh and we love. It's really great. People are having a lot of fun with that one. And that's also, it's Friday afternoon, so for some reason that brings out Holocaust deniers. I don't know. Banning Holocaust deniers is always fun. I go by he, him pronouns. My work can be found, as I said, at stepbackhistory.com, TristanPJ on Twitter, and tristanwon'tshutup.com. And I will say, pretty cool stuff to point out is that Step Back History is now about 100 subscribers away from hitting 69,000 subscribers, and actually only about 20,000 views away from 4 million views. And Tristan Won't Shut Up just recently passed 3,000 subscribers when it had about 600 this time last week. So it's been quite a week on Tristan Won't Shut Up, obviously. And if you are on Twitch and you have Amazon Prime, because maybe you want to watch season 2 of The Boys, which comes out soon, I believe, then please use your free Amazon Prime or your free Twitch Prime subscription that you get every month to help an independent creator. Because if you don't, Amazon gets to keep the money, and if you do use it, then you actually do get to help out people. And if you choose Step Back History, you're putting food in this thing's belly, and you're helping me pay rent so that this cat doesn't go homeless. If you guys want to check out my content, my latest video is on Step Back History. It came out last Friday. It's a video about Leon Czolgosz and the assassination of William McKinley. Very cool video titled "The Anarchist Who Killed the President." Getting a very good reception. People seem to be really liking it, which makes me very happy. And my next video is actually going to be coming out right after this stream is over. I have a video for Tristan Won't Shut Up coming out literally the second the stream ends. Well, not the second the stream ends, but as soon as the stream ends, the next thing I'm going to do is release the video. And it's on there's the fact that Crusader Kings 3 comes out tomorrow, so the title of the video is SJW Ruins Crusader Kings 3, but it's actually, that's sort of clickbaity, and the video is actually about, it's about kind of a critical analysis of the Eurocentrism, racism, fascist themes, and the kind of questionable fan base of the Paradox Grand Strategy series of games, coming from a person who enjoys them immensely. So that's going to be... I'm going to criticize a video game, so that's fun. That's gonna make me real popular at the Parisian Salon. So I'm expecting either no one's going to watch it or I'm going to get a deluge of death threats. Don't know which one I'm going to get. Thank you, Peepodoom, for both following and becoming a subscriber. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. You have no idea how much that helps make this. How much that makes a difference. And I also, before we get started, I want to point out too that there will be no streams next week. All 3 streams are not going to happen next week. I just wanted to let you guys know that. I'll be saying it every stream, and I'll still get people in the Discord saying, "Hey, Tristan, where's the stream? I thought there was a stream today." But, that's life. There's just so many of you guys, it's hard to get a message out to every... I'm learning it's very hard when you have an audience to get one message out to all people. So that's life. That's a good problem to have. There's too many people who like your stuff, so it's hard to tell them all something. But next week I'm going to be on vacation, so there's going to be no streams. I'm going to try and get a Tristan Won't Shut Up video to come out on Thursday as scheduled, so hopefully we won't miss out on that. Now that the McKinley assassination video is out, I'm going to focus on getting all of the Tristan Won't Shut Up content ready to go for Thursday and then the next Thursday. So that's life. So I'm going on vacation. Obviously it's like COVID time, so I can't go anywhere fancy, but Kelly and I and my parents are going to a cottage for 4 days. And it just happens to be Monday to Friday, so. Yay. And I'm looking forward to it because, as you know, going to the cottage and spending a lot of time outside is great in September. Because in September, early September, you get to enjoy two things at the same time, which is one, all of the heat of summertime. So it'll probably be like, it's actually kind of cool today, but it'll probably end up being like 30 degrees for the entire 4 days. And you get the double joy, the fact that because it's autumn, all the plants aren't making flowers anymore, so the wasps are essentially much more aggressive and everywhere, and going after literally everything you eat. So now that outside is more wasp than air, we're going to be spending a lot of time outside. So it's going to be real fun. I actually think it's going to be really fun. I'm going to make me some hot dogs on a fire pit, because I don't think I've gone to a cottage or done anything even close to like camping since I was like 14, so this is really a pretty good thing. Hey, Notorious SRG, thank you for following. Welcome to the Orc Gang. All right, so let's see what we've got in the chat. Hello, everyone saying hi to each other. I love that there's like a community building up of people who come to these streams to hang out with each other, not just me. Sir Zhaozha had your first day of university. I hope that was fun. I'm sure that's terrifying given the situation. I rewatched that Enterprise you're talking about. Don't you think it's kind of problematic to depict the victims of an atrocity as the ones keeping the hate alive? Like, I don't imagine there are many African Americans who'd have problems being treated by a doctor who's descended from a Confederate soldier, whereas I do imagine a lot of white Southerners who wouldn't be cool being treated by a black doctor. Maybe, but that's like one like it's kind of a contrived situation for sure, and it's a bit exaggerated compared to like contemporary real world like disruptions between people, but I think that it's like the way, like just like the kind of arc that Dr. Phlox goes through in that episode, and sort of the arc that the two characters go through in that episode is still pretty good and pretty interesting. Yeah, the topic, obviously they needed to contrive a situation so that they made those two getting past their sort of historic hatred of each other as a sticking point to as a matter of life and death, so that it makes dramatic television. But I still think the idea and the way that they talked about it was pretty good. If you want to plug me again this stream, tell folks that my commission prices are going up tomorrow. Yeah, Birdie Blake, if you guys are a fan of this piece of art right here, this is a work by wonderful illustrator Birdie Blake, who draws cool illustrations, especially of character art. Their work is... There's a really great... I'm sure that they can put... They're a mod. They can put links in the chat, but... Birdie draws a lot of really cool stuff. A lot of... if you're a fan of... Hey! Take off Sir Johnny McDonald's fucking head. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second after I'm done plugging Birdie's stuff. Birdie draws a lot of character illustrations, so if you have a D&D character that you want to see realized in the real world, or if you have a persona or thing that you want to draw, I think those are... I imagine those are Birdie's two specializations. But also, like, they have a pretty generous price for their art that September 1st is going up. So if you want to get a commission in, today would be a great day to do it. Hey, Notorious SRG, thank you for subscribing. Holy crap, you guys are awesome. And yeah, so to kind of go on, what was it? Peepadome? It was who was it who said something about? I have to go and scroll. Luckily, the real star of the show, Mia Mulder's not here, so the chat's not scrolling by like crazy. But yeah, a statue of John A. Macdonald, the first Prime Minister of Canada and noted committer of genocide, was torn down in Montreal over the weekend, and that fucking rules because it's like a huge statue. It's like I think like one of the bigger statues in Montreal, and it got torn the fuck down. It made me so happy. Was Stalin right wing? I mean, no. He was a communist. He was definitely firmly on the left. He was just firmly authoritarian, and he definitely had very conservative, he had conservative opinions when it came to, like, stuff to do with, like, gender and race and stuff. But, like, to say that he was not left-wing would be... No, like... He's still, he definitely was a communist. He's written books about communist theory and stuff like that, so... I'm not going to take that away from him. You found an old interview with Mia in a Swedish newspaper? That's pretty cool. Hope it's good. Apparently, according to legal podcast guys, Kyle Rittenhouse could get as little as 5 years if whatever judge he decides to go easy on him. Is it bad that I think that wouldn't be the right thing to do? I don't believe in giving teenagers life sentences, and broader political context of the situation doesn't change my mind about that. I mean, you know me. I'm a restorative justice person, so I would rather that kid, learn why murder is bad and spend the rest of his life, being forced to find the repercussions for the actions he did by doing good deeds and trying to, kind of repair the damage he's done to the world. Maybe by, personally helping the families of the people whose lives he ended in a fit of racist anger. But I think that if I'm not very much, me, I'm not a lock people up and throw away the key type person. But I do know that if Rittenhouse gets 5 years in prison because he's only 17 and he's white, so therefore a judge will be easy on him, is going to not be well received by the general public, and nor should it be, because in our justice system, that is basically him getting away very easily, and that's going to result in some real fucking anger that will be justified. In a situation that's already really bad. How do you deal with people like Leon? Why do you get people who didn't want him in their orgs, but people like him are obviously dangerous if left undirected? Now there's a good question. So for the guys who don't know, Leon Czolgosz was the guy who killed President William McKinley in 1901. He was an anarchist, but the thing notably about him is that he was very, he was very socially awkward, probably had some form of mental illness, and that resulted in him being kind of shunned and rejected by a lot of other anarchist orgs, because he was just constantly openly calling for violence, and his social awkwardness combined with that made them think that he was a cop. I mean, there's a few ways that you're going to have to address that. People like Leon Czolgosz, he's kind of lone wolf radicals. And whenever that video I did was a part of a series on presidential assassinations I'm going to do. And you're going to find that his story is not alone. His story is like his personality and the personality of people like Lee Harvey Oswald, for example, are not that different from each other. And I think that part of it is like an aspect of toxic masculinity that like disaffected young men who feel like they're rejected by the world tend to respond to that with violent outbursts, and the notoriety and attention that's given to people who kill people like presidents is sort of like and I'd say that it's the same kind of motivation behind like mass shooters who want to commit mass shootings to either make a political statement, which is terrorism, or they want to just get the notoriety for having done a mass shooting. I think both of those are very, very apt things, and I think that comes down to the way that because these assassins and mass shooters are basically nearly 100% men and nearly 100% white. And talking about the sort of like perceived loss of privilege that comes from those two positions, and the sort of like the situation that's brought up by that. You may argue for Leon Czolgosz that it maybe was like a little bit compromised because he was a first generation Polish American, which in 1901 was not exactly like being a regular ass white person, so it might have been a bit different. But I would say that like to some extent, like it's hard to really control people who are like once they've already become radicalized and violent, because no leftist space should be expected to just allow people who are toxic and nasty into their ranks. I'm not Vosh. I don't think that we need to be courting like angry reactionary white guys in order to make the left function well. So I would say that you have to deal with the sort of, instead of trying to control individuals as they come out, you would need to, I think, more deal with the systemic issues, which is the fact that we, in like white men specifically, but men more broadly, are socialized to think that resolving our displeasure and anger with violent outbursts, and in extreme examples like mass murder and things like that, those things are like that tackling of what is called toxic masculinity, I think, is the first thing that needs to be addressed. I know I'm like taking like the gendered analysis of like the assassination of the president, but I think that aspect, that very masculine aspect of like of retributive violence or whatever, is the first thing that needs to be addressed. Because like, yeah. So that's the main thing. Banning Holocaust deniers isn't fun because it means there are Holocaust deniers. Fair. You like the format of Tristan Won't Shut Up a lot. That's awesome. Thank you. I will say, like, I have a very specific plan with Tristan Won't Shut Up. So first of all, with Tristan Won't Shut Up, I started it because I wanted to start a second channel because I kept getting ideas for videos that would not fit on Step Back. And sometimes I had ideas for Step Back videos that just won't do well because they're on topics that people don't click on and everything like that. So I have all of those that I was sitting on. But on top of that, I missed doing Quick Step, and I think people liked Quick Step. But first of all, I didn't like an idea that was literally framed around how little effort went into it. Like the whole idea about Quick Step being a thing that was fast and slapped together, I thought was not good. not good. I didn't like that at all. And second of all, it was like kind of carving my audience in half. Like now I know that there are a few people, like I think Daniel, kind of a regular in the stream, Daniel, they've said that that they don't really even watch my history videos, and that they were more interested in my politics videos and my sort of like quick step videos. And so I was like realizing I was creating like two audiences, and that having a channel where half the content is stuff that you want and half the content is stuff you don't want is not really good, not a very good mixture to create a healthy YouTube audience. And so I started Tristan Won't Shut Up as a way to sort of fill that hole. Hey, thank you for the bit. So like all that stuff together made me think that I needed to change things up quite a bit. And a second channel was the way to do it. And the other thing too, and this is a thing that I want to make a strong emphasis on because I really don't want to forget this, is that Tristan Won't Shut Up is not going to be like Step Back 2 or like a second, like it's not going to be a certified second channel, in that like it's considered like an afterthought of my main content. And so the main thing I want to emphasize and do with Tristan Won't Shut Up is to treat it as seriously as I do Step Back History, and that it is like, it's not a sort of like, it's not sort of like a secondary project or anything, or a side project, that it is as much important to my work as Step Back is. Talking about different topics, but still given as much care and love as Step Back is. That's the hope. And I mean, it got on the eyeball zone, and now it has 3,000 subscribers, so it's getting there. Kelly pointed out to me that with the kind of content I do and how successful the first two videos have been, that it's not impossible that Tristan Won't Shut Up in like a couple years might actually be neck and neck with Step Back, if not actually doing better than Step Back. So it's a much more broad audience can get into Tristan Won't Shut Up than Step Back. It's a much cleverer name, and the videos from episode, like the audience that I'm going to be cultivating from video 1 are going to be a lot more cohesive, so that everybody's sort of going to be focused on or interested in the same kind of stuff, if that makes sense. Sorry, that's a little bit under the hood talk, but I just wanted to get that out there because I'm very proud of this new project. What do you think of Vietnam? I didn't know it was a democracy until Luna and America discussed the country. I mean, what do I think of Vietnam? I mean, like what's it called? It's a cool country, cool history. I don't know like a whole lot about how their government works, except that they've gone through a period where they sort of liberalized their economy. That in like private conversations I've had with American Johnson, he said to me that like, he's not the biggest fan of like how the two political parties are basically now sort of like the new and young people are more about liberalization and like opening the economy and more capitalism. While because Vietnam used to be like a more like kind of hardline communist country, their older generation and their old conservatives are the ones who are on the political left. So the political left is like their conservatives because it's their older people and people who like want to bring Vietnam back to the way it used to be like, 30, 40 years ago. While the like millennials and stuff like that, the young people who want to make change are the right, because they want to make like a more liberal economy and stuff. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic, but yeah. Do you think a non-capitalist society should have less fictional stories about colonizing other planets? I think that there's something to be said about that. I think that there's something strange about sort of the baked-in assumption that space travel is instantly going to mean that, that human beings, as soon as we figure out how to move out into the cosmos, that the first thing we should learn how to do is how to go to other planets and start living there and start colonizing. Like, why is that the thing that we need to be doing? Like, I feel like that's sort of like there's something very like Western and very like colonial mindset about that. 'Cause, Video games fans famously chill. Yeah. The Parisian Salon. No streams. Why? Oh, yeah. Going to a cottage. I'm going to eat a steak. And I'm going to cook marshmallows on a fire. And probably not swim in a lake because it'll probably be... maybe swim in a lake. Who knows? But for the most part, I'm going to read books and listen to podcasts. And just not think about work for 4 days. That's my hope, because I have, especially this week and like the last couple weeks, because getting the Step Back video together took a lot. It took a lot of hours. And I'm sort of, like today, I have a Mexi video I have to finish editing. And I have 2 Tristan Won't Shut Up videos to produce this week. So next week is going to be like me taking a relaxing vacation after like 2 weeks of, really, really gunning it for work this week. So I'm excited to have some time off. Aren't you just allergic to summer in general? Love the shot of U.S. politics. That wasn't a shot of U.S. politics. That was extremely literal. Like, outside, the small insects that sting you, that suck, and everybody hates, called wasps, have basically, like, right now, in London, Ontario, like, I was downtown today because I went to Tim Hortons to get a coffee, and, like, roving gangs of wild wasps basically own the streets now. Like, I went outside with a coffee, and I was trying to drink it, and I had, like, 4 of them chasing me. Like, there's nothing. Like, there's no way that, the wasps basically own outside now. There is no... The humans have lost the war. And until they die when the first freeze happens, the wasps have won. They own everything. You go to, like, any garbage can and there's, like, a swarm of them hovering around. And you have any food on you, and in COVID times, because you can't eat inside anymore, like, in COVID times, basically, if you're outside with food, they're after you. They will fucking destroy you. Like, the war's been lost. The wasps have won. There's an Ian Banks novel about a civilization who decides social standing by how good you are at this elaborate strategy game. A human from the culture travels there and fucks the worldview by proving it's better to play a game as a decentralized pluralist society instead of an empire. Your last vid reminded me of that. Interesting. That's fun. Yeah. Let's see. After I mentioned it to you, I reread that part about Harry Turtle's alt history with the cavemen. I mentioned in the 19th century labor movements that also supported SIM, what cavemen are called in the books, rights, because they didn't want it to be legal to staff factories with SIM slaves. Given the way they treated black scabs IRL, do you think it's more likely that they just turn to violence against the cavemen rather than help them? Probably. I need to make a video at some point in the future. I got approximately 6 million requests last week, or over the last few days, to talk about American labor history, and I'm definitely going to talk a lot about about a book, probably my favorite book on American labor history, which is called The Wages of Whiteness, which is a book about how the white working class, through various like psychological and social studies stuff, have been like prompted to basically still be racist, even though they have more in common with, you know, working class black people than they do with white plutocrats. But yeah, my labor. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Love your stuff. Thank you, Notorious SRG. It's much appreciated. Where's Mia? Mia has, there's like window inspectors checking out her apartment today. So she actually can't be in her apartment for some reason. So she will be back when the next Monday Discourse happens, which will be in about 2 weeks from today. How would you justify democracy to an imperialist alien? There's a bit in World War where the alien asks a human why it matters if people pick their leaders if all their material needs are taken care of by the dictatorship they already live under, i.e. is in the case of their home world. How would you answer that? I mean, it's kind of the same thing as like Saudi Arabia, because that happens in Saudi Arabia in a lot of ways. There's sort of a cradle-to-grave welfare system in Saudi Arabia, just because, and like negative taxes and stuff like that, because the country's just so goddamn rich off oil that they can just do it. What I would say is, you know, we live in, like, people should be entitled to have some sort of say over the direction of their society. Because regimes can change, resources are not always infinite, and you never know. Like, what's it called? Like, society, like the organizational structure of society needs self-corrective mechanisms to respond to things, and if they have no responsibility to their people, then fucking over their people doesn't really matter to them. And that like if there isn't some sort of, like, you know, form of accountability for the actions of the state, then there's, like, what's it called? Your life is basically completely at the whim of these people. And yeah, if like one emperor or whatever is good, then that's great. You get a bad emperor, and ooh, the music was really well timed for that. You get like one bad emperor, and all of a sudden you have an entire political structure that has no self-correcting mechanisms and will just run itself into the ground. Is it true that Tristan's a George Soros paid actor to make left-wingers look cool? Ooh. Okay, I've been called a lot of things. Cool is not one of them. Was McDonald's special in any way? Like, would Canadian history be more or less the same if someone else was the first prime minister? I mean, no. Johnny McDonald was a rampaging alcoholic. That I think adds some stuff to it. Like, there was the fact that like Johnny McDonald got so shit-faced on the regular that he once threw up in Parliament. But besides that, like, we don't talk too much about Johnny McDonald because he was a complete paper bag of a person. All he did was commit genocide of indigenous people, throw up in Parliament, and was Prime Minister twice in non-consecutive elections. How much stock do you really put into that election simulation you talked about? Like, it's okay. So, like, I've gotten a lot of people who've, like, commented on the video I did on the sort of simulation of the presidential election, and I think that people were taking away some of the wrong lessons from it. So first of all, I'll respond to a few comments I got. So one was that some people were criticizing criticizing what I was doing, because the Transition Integrity Project, a project literally set up to figure out what would happen if Trump refused to concede the election and would do dirty tricks in order to win an election even if he lost. They set up scenarios to and I got comments that were criticizing the video and the project in general, because they didn't factor what would happen if Trump won, which already shows the level of discourse we're at, because this is literally how, like, the entire project was like, if Trump loses the election but still wants to hang on to power, what kinds of things could happen? So that's already been cut off. But the thing that I think about the election simulations, the games that were played, that I think spoke a lot. Like, obviously, I don't think that the things that happen in the simulation would like verbatim happen. I think that would be silly to think that like these people perfectly simulated all of the chaotic situations that would happen. What they did do is that the simulations that they ran, which they ran with like, so like when they simulated the election, they used tabletop rules and like dice in order to like, you know, play out different scenarios, and random shit could happen that would change things. But one of the things I think is key important is that like the different campaigns, like the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign, were both played by Republican and Democratic campaign strategists. That like the Republicans, like the congressional Republicans, were played by former congressional Republicans, that the Democrats were played by former congressional Democrats, and that the media was played by actual journalists and such and such and such. And so what I think was important is that it showed a lot while it didn't show like, you know, exactly what would happen, it definitely showed what trends and forces were at play. And things that showed up in multiple scenarios sort of give you, while not like the exact things that are going to happen, definitely ideas of what to look out for. Like, hey Phoebe. So like the idea is that like these simulations showed that mobilization on the street and public perception filtered through media are going to play really big factors in who thinks that like public perception about like the how the election how the rightful winner of the election might play out. And so yes, I know you're very, very happy to see me, Phoebe. So that's like number one. And so while like I don't think that like Joe Biden is going to try and get the West Coast states to threaten to secede, if there's like another discrepancy between the Electoral College and the popular vote, I do think that there is definitely a lot to be said that the Democrats may, if the Democrats lose a third election in the 21st century with the popular vote, but not the Electoral College, that the Democrats might try to do something in order to, that might be the final straw of the system. Because it seems the Electoral College only really helps Republicans maintain minority rule. And that the Democrats might try to do something to sort of force that change. Maybe threatening to secede 3 states is a bit much for the Biden campaign, but I definitely think that it's going to cause a lot of chaos in the streets. Like if Trump gets reelected with the Electoral College but loses the popular vote, which like I think is like the most, if Trump were to win the election, that's like the most likely scenario, is that he'll win the Electoral College but not the popular vote again. I think that that's going to cause a lot of anger and a lot of frustration and a lot of protests. So that's the thing. Watching out for the different way, like the simulation also showed all the different ways that Trump will use his power to try and fuck up and sow doubt about the validity of mail-in votes, which is something that we're already seeing. So I think that there's some value, like there's value to be taken away by like the broad strokes, but yeah, I don't think like the individual situations will happen like beat by beat, obviously. Did you know that the Germans built the first man-made rocket to reach space? Sputnik was the first object to actually go into orbit, but in 1944 the Luftwaffe managed to get a V-2 over 100 kilometers above sea level. Do you think that the fact that happened while the Nazis were in power would would preclude Germans from taking pride in the accomplishment? Probably. Pretty much everything the Nazis did is tainted by the fact that it was done by genocidal maniacs, so yeah. Was Czolgosz an accelerationist, do you think? I think Czolgosz was very much influenced by the by propaganda of the deed. So that is a form of accelerationism if you think about it. Like, propaganda of the deed was this idea that was popular amongst anarchists at the time. That was like, hey, if like there's a strike happening and a boss and like the boss of the factory starts like hiring like the Pinkertons to start shooting at the strikers, that if you assassinate that boss, that the backlash caused by the state might trigger like people to respond against the state in kind, because like they see the state acting very obviously unjustly. That was sort of the idea among anarchists at the time, which is definitely a form of accelerationism. So not exactly, because like it's not like accelerationism is very much like a Marxist tendency, and Czolgosz was responding to something that was a anarchist tendency at the time, but they have definite like roots in the same sort of line of thinking. Do you have a good information source that covers up-to-the-date facts of this kid's shootings? I'm a bit out of the loop and don't have a comprehensive understanding of what happened. I don't think anything's like any like longer form think piece has been written. There's just some reports. I think that like it only happened like last week, so there's still things are still a little bit up in the air. But yeah, I would just Google around, I think. Who is the worst president over Woodrow Wilson, and why is it Benjamin Harrison? Listen, I know that Woodrow Wilson has become a meme. I know that Cypher really doesn't like Woodrow Wilson. And Woodrow Wilson, admittedly, did a lot of really shitty things. So, there's that. But I mean, also the 19th Amendment, which is like not nothing. Like, Woodrow Wilson was the president who got women the vote, and also passed a bunch of progressive shit while he was president. Was very much basically a part of like amalgamating the populist progressive movement into the Democratic Party at the time, and pushed forward a lot of white women. Yeah, okay, yeah, of course. But still, women in general couldn't vote before the 19th Amendment, which is still a step in the right direction. But like Woodrow Wilson can't just be seen as like an overall like terrible president. Like there are way worse presidents than Woodrow Wilson. He was a racist asshole who made a major step back for a lot of racial progress, especially in like the White House and in Washington and stuff, because he was like the first Democratic president of the United States in a long time. Which, you know, the Democratic Party was still pretty full of like white supremacists at that point. Also, though, 19th Amendment, bunch of workers' rights stuff. Not something to be discounted. I'd say that there are worse presidents. Like I would say Andrew Johnson was a worse president than Woodrow Wilson. I would say that George W. Bush was a worse president than Andrew Johnson, or a worse president than Woodrow Wilson. Because George Washington basically had Woodrow Wilson's idea of foreign policy, and at the same time also had reactionary right-wing social policies, and also had extreme right-wing economic ideas, and so had like no redeeming qualities at all. Hey, Shabius, thank you for following. But I think there's like no president that can be considered like generally good. That the good things they did outweigh the bad things they did. I would say that the other bad presidents, there's freaking Calvin Coolidge, who basically is responsible for making the Depression go from bad to worse. Friggin' trying to think some other ones. Ronald Reagan, basically responsible for restarting the Cold War. Or just like what's it called? Even what's his name? John Adams, who tried to make it like illegal to criticize the presidents. Like there's some like I don't know. I feel like there's plenty of bad president or James K. Polk, who started a war for literally no reason because he wanted to conquer Mexico. I was saying, Woodrow Wilson doesn't stick out to me as like singularly bad. And if anything, Benjamin Harrison, like isn't, if I remember correctly, Harrison might be one of the best presidents in American history because all he did was get elected, do a 3-hour speech with no coat on in the frigid winter, caught pneumonia from his inaugural address, and died 30 days into office. I don't know. As far as presidents go, not a bad track record. He was only president for 30 days, and he died of pneumonia, and he was sick for like that entire time. That's about like, if you think about the presidency as just like doing the least amount of damage, I think that Harrison might have been the best president in American history. Because he was just dying of pneumonia his entire time in office. Plus he was from Indiana, which I think we can all agree is the worst state. Sorry, I have to say it louder so that Kelly can hear me. Also, he was from Indiana, which we can all agree is the worst state. Maybe should have made that time, I don't know. A while back I read an SF story about a parallel universe populated by intelligent Neanderthals. They have no religion or even mythology, but they do still have their own fiction. You know, I dislike religion, but do you think it'd be possible for a species to create fiction without also having the capacity to create religion and mythology? Yeah. I think that, like, primate, or like, what's it called? Hominid brains basically organize their memory through, you know, sequences of events, which is basically the core of a story. And so I think that, yeah, there's definitely could have happened. Do you think there are times when looking at things from a position of privilege is good? As in, seeing things from a more dispassionate view might help you find a better solution as opposed to having stakes in it? I mean, maybe, but I think for the most part, having no stake in the outcome usually leads to an unempathetic, like dispassionate analysis of a situation typically translates to unempathetic like idea of it. And you get into then, like, to acknowledge that, to say that that's like a good way to decide upon things is sort of taking the, like, what's it called, Ben Shapiro's idea of politics, which is like that having empathy and sympathy for other people is bad, which is like, I don't think that's a healthy way to do anything, really. Talking about Mackenzie King, I don't know that much about Mackenzie King, to be honest. Do you think Dimitri Savendes is similar to the McKinley assassination? I don't know who that is, so I can't really say anything to it. Traffic enforcement officer cops, even though they're literally the perfect substitute for like half of what cops do. How much stock do you really put in the election? I already answered that. Me and a few other fellas in the chat were talking about prisons. In ideal Tristantopia, what would you do about people who are serial killers, sadistic murderers, serial rapists, pedophiles, etc.? People who cannot be entered back into society without causing harm to normal people. First of all, I think that there's a concept that there are way more of these people than there actually are. So I think that the amount of people who are truly irredeemable are fairly small. Most people who commit horrible acts like that are usually suffering from extreme forms of mental illness that we really can only deal with. We really have, like, we really don't have a good way to deal with, because we have an extremely underfunded and under-resourced medical healthcare system. And so I think that a lot of those people are definitely going to be in need of some long-term psychiatric evaluation and rehabilitation, for sure. Spending a lot of time, there is a purpose for psychiatric wards and hospitals and stuff like that, and the security measures that they do, because some people, when they are in the throes of extreme mental illness, can be a threat to themselves and others, more often themselves. But because, like, for example, like a lot of stuff that we're talking about here have to do with like people who have like sort of like sexual sadism compulsions that need to be, they need to be worked out with therapists, and like pedophilia is like obviously not exactly the healthiest thing to be into. So and definitely people who are can be like, those people can be rehabilitated. It has been shown to happen. It just takes a lot of therapy, a lot of work. And in those times, I think that it is perfectly reasonable to limit their capacity to interact with people on a daily basis or on a regular basis. I mean, not to like completely isolate them, but I think that you could do so. Like you can have varying degrees. Like there's a lot of, you could have not prisons per se, but like places where people who might be a threat to others can live, that would be a lot less punitive and closed off than, say, like a prison, but definitely keeps them a safe distance from people until they've shown that they can be rehabilitated. I think that a lot of prisons in Scandinavia are kind of cool with this, are cool like in this way, because the prisoners, not only do the prisoners get like, hopefully would get the therapy they need, but as part of being in a like Scandinavian style prison where they actually, it's more like a fairly secure apartment block, what happens is that a lot of them pick up duties that are associated with running the prison, and over time it sort of rehabilitates people, like the people who live there, by sort of integrating them into a community that they can sort of realize the importance of, like, pro-social behavior and stuff like that, while getting a lot of regular therapy. And if they have no path towards rehabilitation, which I feel like would be like an extreme minority of cases, they would just stay there as I feel like it should be the duty of society to never 100% give up on people. Like I have no thought that like even people who are actually irredeemable, that we should just be like, all right, well, we determined you by these criteria to be irredeemable, so we're going to throw you in a pit and throw away the key. Like, I don't think that is a good way to do it, but I think that I definitely think that there's, we should keep trying, even if it's fruitless, because I would prefer a society that fruitlessly keeps trying to rehabilitate people in a safe context, of course, in a context where they're unable to hurt others, and failing, rather than having a society that decides through, like, abstract criteria, this is a person who's irredeemable, they need to be thrown away forever. That's my take. But in many ways, but again, I would say that is like an extreme minority of people, like extreme minority. Like if there are more than 5 people in, like, say, the United States who are like actually irredeemable, I would be surprised. And definitely the conditions of prison will do nothing to make them better. Like, the way that our prison system works, there's definitely no... the way the prison system functions is in no way going to actually make progress towards making these people better. that needs to be like the first Charles Manson. Charles Manson is dead. But like yeah, I think that like long term, prison is not exactly an environment that will make these people move in any sort of positive direction, if that makes sense. We need to sort of move away from the idea of prison as being a like prison being this punitive place where we stick people so they can think about what they did for years and years and years until all of the productive years of their life have been completely wasted away and they are integrated into a criminal enterprise, learn how to become better criminals, and then with no economic prospects are then just thrown out onto the streets to fend for themselves. I feel like that's not going to solve a lot of the problems of antisocial behavior. If we need to have a prison, it would be an extremely small capacity, and it would be more about trying to keep people who are still actively a threat to other people because of like severe mental illness or because of like, you know, just because like they have not been able to be shown to be a reliable, safe person in public. A place where they can be rehabilitated and live in a society that is safe from them victimizing other people. Like, I think that's the situation that I'd want, and put them in a context where they can get the rehabilitative therapy they need. And on top of that, I think the number one thing is giving them opportunities to participate in a sort of micro society of the people who live there, so that they can learn sort of like why social behavior is good. Like they can learn like how to exist as part of a community, which in many ways a lot of like violent crime and stuff like that is committed because of the disconnection created between the individual and society, because, you know, late capitalism does that actively. And now I'm going to get a whole lot of I can already feel the energy radiating from the chat for saying that. Who was the best / least bad Republican president of the 20th century? All right, so the Republican presidents of the 20th century. You've got McKinley for 1 year. You've got Teddy Roosevelt. Then you've got Humphrey, Coolidge, Eisenhower, Nixon, Reagan, Bush. Am I missing any? Coolidge. Oh, there's another one. Freaking eyebrows guy. Not Harrison. The hell's that guy's name? Oh, Ford. Yeah, Gerald Ford. Forgot about Gerald Ford. Everyone forgot about Gerald Ford. Warren G. Harding. Yeah. So those are like the Republicans of the 20th century. I would say that, so maybe some examples. I think that maybe, so the things I can think of are the sort of conservative turn that Nixon brought about presidents are probably on the top of the list. Probably not the ones who were like the sort of like before the conservative turn that happened with the Taft administration. Oh yeah, Taft's another Republican president of the 20th century. I would probably say out of all of those, the least bad Republican president is probably Teddy Roosevelt. Maybe. Like Teddy, I'm trying to remember what Teddy Roosevelt's like main thing that he did during his presidency was like anti-monopoly stuff, where he like broke up Standard Oil and like all that kind of stuff, and he was known as the Trust Buster, which like I'll take that. He also like basically was like the last like progressive Republican, and then once the Taft became into power, Teddy Roosevelt basically pulled all of the progressive Republicans out of the party and turned them into the Bull Moose Party. And then they kind of joined the Democratic Party after that. So that's the Republican Party kind of becomes a firmly conservative party after that. So I would say, I guess Teddy Roosevelt I'm gonna have to go with. Although Teddy Roosevelt really liked war and imperialism, which is not good. But you said least bad, and I don't think there's. And like I said, I think that I can very firmly, confidently say that there was no such thing as a good president, or even a president who had the enough good things that it sort of outweighed the bad things they did. I think that pretty much all presidents were universally bad presidents. With I think and Teddy Roosevelt on the Republican ticket is probably the only 20th century Republican I can think of that would hit that note. Out of all presidents, I think that the least bad presidents were probably Lyndon B. Johnson and Franklin Roosevelt, because they probably did more. If it wasn't for Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon B. Johnson, I don't think America would be a functioning state today. Honestly, if it wasn't for FDR, America probably would have gone fascist. To be fascists would have taken over the United States if it wasn't for the sort of cooling down of the sort of the Depression that FDR put it forward. And Lyndon B. Johnson put in a lot of programs like Medicare and Medicaid and sort of those Great Society programs that is keeping a lot of people in America need as a lifeline to survive even to this day. Unlike America today. Yeah, well, America's kind of relapsed into fascism because the neoliberal period was actively about trying to undo the sort of Great Society era stuff. Was Mackenzie King a crypto-Nazi? He said nothing but nice things about Hitler before World War II. Wouldn't surprise me, although I don't think that makes it. I don't think that he's pro-genocide. At least I hope not. On the Discord last night, I said maybe I'd rather businesses have to pay extra taxes if they want to have indoor smoking rather than have it entirely illegal. Would that be a bad idea? Yeah, because indoor smoking, one of the main reasons for indoor smoking to ban it is not so much for the customer, not only a limit on the customer, but because people don't really get much choice in what jobs they have. Secondary smoke in indoor areas is extremely dangerous for the people who work there. And so very often you could end up in a situation where you're forcing people to work in a context in which they could develop lung cancer and die. So it's a basic safety thing. It's a workplace safety issue. And I would rather people not get lung cancer rather than companies have to pay extra money by giving their employees lung cancer. Thinking about making a trans character in my story. Is it better to not to do it, to not misrepresent, or to have a character but don't mention their transness, or 3, mention the transness? I think Mia will have more nuanced things to say about this. Obviously, I'm a cis guy, so I can't really speak too much to it. But I think it would be perfectly fine to write trans characters into your story. It's just that, do your research, talk to trans people about their experiences, and you don't have to bring it up if it's not a central part of the plot, I would say. But mentioning, hey, this is a character, they're trans. That's the most you need. But if you want to talk about transness, then you get more into you're gonna have to do a lot of research, because representation is good, but bad representation can be very destructive. As a trans guy, I'd mention the transness and have a trans person look it over and talk it out. Yeah. Exactly. Hey! Reza Sutra gave out a community sub. Thank you so much. Reza Sutra, you're the real hero. Okay, let's see. My Step Back History is a pretty good name too, though. The funny thing is that I keep forgetting that, like, because Step Back, it used to just be called Step Back at a certain point, but then everyone started adding history to it, and so it just kind of became part of it. A lot of activists say that we should make the world more accommodating for disabled people rather than imagining that we can fix them with things like cybernetics and transhumanism. Does that mean we shouldn't be pursuing that stuff at all? Like yesterday I watched a disabled breadtuber say that he'd rather make all public buildings have ramps rather than thinking that we can give all disabled people bionic legs. All for more ramps, but does that mean we shouldn't be trying to make bionic legs? I mean, ooh. This is interesting. This is a very interesting discussion. I think that you would need to talk to more, like, I'm not very well versed on, like, disability like rights theory and stuff like that, but because I can, like, very legitimately see both arguments making sense. I think that, like, things like bionic legs as an example is just like the next generation of assistive devices. Like, I would say that, like, bionic legs is sort of like saying, like, hey, like, to say that, like, bionic legs are worse than, like, are, like, bad, but ramps good is I don't know, like, it feels like it's like, well, what if we invented, like, something better than the wheelchair? And, like, getting, like, bionic legs would not only let, like, for example, somebody who had like, you know, mobility issues, would give them the ability to do more things than even a wheelchair would have access to, like things that, you know, we should make everything as accessible as possible, obviously, but, like, it'd be cool to, like, be like, hey, you could go hiking, you could, like, do this and that, and I think that assistive technologies to give people with disabilities more abilities to do things is good. I just think that we need to remove it from the idea of, like, thinking that these are problems that need to be fixed, and more as, like, we should be developing assistive technologies to help people. So, and that more, like, what's it called? We should be spending more often. Like, I think that, like, yeah, like, I think treating it more as assistive technologies rather than, like, cures and stuff like that, and fixing disability is, like, that's it's just the wrong way to approach the problem, if that makes sense. I don't know if that, does that make sense? Am I making sense? I hope that, like, hopefully that works. But I think, yeah, like, in more ways, like, I think that making public policy and designing, like, you know, making a world that is inclusive of people with different levels of ability is a more important task than, like, inventing the thing to make them be able to do all the things that we need to do. But also, I'm not against the idea of developing technologies to make their lives easier, because it would be great to make everyone's lives easier. I'm doing fantastic. Well, thank you. Barry Goldwater argued for dropping tactical nuclear bombs on Chinese supply lines into Vietnam. Suppose he actually won in '64 and tried to go through with that. Do you think that would have triggered a global nuclear war, i.e. presumably one that would kill the little girl with the daisy? I definitely think that it would have. I think so. I think that, like, the sort of, like, I don't know how, like, by the mid '60s, like, nuclear politics, like the sort of, like, Herman Kahn type of thinking about nuclear war was pretty set in, and so, yeah, I think that firing a nuclear missile in the '60s is basically a recipe for like retaliative strikes and stuff like that. Because the thing about nuclear war is that by the time the missiles are flying, it's already too late. And so all of like these sort of nuclear defense systems were all set up to that the second they detected a missile flying, you can't figure out where that's going to go. So you have to be firing right away, because in a nuclear war, the first round of missiles hitting and doing all of the damage, you want to be sure that whoever you're fighting has taken as much damage as you have, or if not more. And very often, like quick, rapid retaliatory strikes is sort of like the default, and that was the default at the time. This is a horrible thing that like put the world on a hair trigger for complete apocalyptic destruction, but that was sort of the way people thought in that period. And yeah. So it definitely would have been extremely reckless. You should be proud of Tristan Mulched Up. It's a great channel idea and amazing video so far. Thank you. The other day I was listening to a history podcast about the 1964 election. At one point, the narrator claimed that at the time, high taxes and high salaries and benefits demanded by unions forced businesses to borrow a lot of money to keep growing. Is that accurate? Podcast of the 64 election. At one point, the narrator claimed that at the time, high taxes and high salaries and benefits demanded by unions forced businesses to borrow a lot of money to keep growing. It might have been. I'm not sure. Don't really remember. As someone who runs a small channel, I'm always amazed by how people run multiple channels. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to do 2 channels if it wasn't my full-time job. I'll be honest. And I work way more hours than I should. Like I was working until almost 11 o'clock last night because I've been really like burning the candle at both ends to keep to get caught up this week, because it's been a crazy week. So Luna's a punk rock conservative. No, Luna would, yeah, I guess so. Like the thing about Luna and American Johnson, I think the way, like the thing is like young people who are also communists in Vietnam are like less common than like, they're kind of like I don't know. Let's see. So Luna's like the Vietnam Republic equivalent of a young Republican. I don't know. Do you have any plans for CK3 yet? Yeah, I'm gonna play it when it comes out tomorrow. I have to get a haircut at 10:30 in the morning tomorrow, but besides that, I'm gonna play a little bit of it, I think. I have to shoot tomorrow 2 videos, which is like one of those, like shooting is one of those things where like it takes an entire day but only takes about 2 hours, and it's because when you film for 2 hours, it just completely saps all of your energy. And so because like filming 2 videos is going to take me like 2 hours to film. And then afterwards I'm going to be like completely exhausted. And so I will probably be completely burnt out and then spend the rest of the day playing Crusader Kings 3. You should put faith in people just because that creates a possible feedback loop. It's a bit of a liberal maxim. I'd rather have a criminal walk free than jail innocence just redemption. I don't know. Did you watch this? It's short and awesome. I don't know what this is. I did not see this. I did not see the Star Wars anime opening, no. You should put it in the reactor chat if you want it to be a thing that I watch eventually. All right. Remember last week I said American refugees would probably be treated pretty well because they have white privilege. Does the way Polish people were treated in the UK show that being white doesn't always protect you from bigotry? Yeah, but I think that it's a bit more racially coded in, it's a bit more racially coded in North America. Like, we don't have, like, the sort of like which European ethnicities you come from don't matter as much here. Oh, white is white to a lot of Americans, including Canadians, I guess. I have a pair of friends who are trans men, just like my hypothetical character, so I should discuss with them. Yeah, that is a good idea. The wasps don't anything again. I love the show. As an anarchist, do you vote? Yes. Oh, that was a super chat. Oh, sorry, I didn't see the super chat. Thank you so much, Zane, for the super chat. As an anarchist, do I vote? Yes. Yes, I do. I also campaign, actually. I gotta keep my eyes on the YouTube chat for super chats. I'm sorry. That is my bad. As an anarchist, I do vote. I also campaign because I believe in doing whatever kind of things you have, the tools you have. Elections only happen once every few years, and so you gotta I definitely want to try and there's a difference between political action that I want to do and I want people to be able to afford to go to the dentist here, and so I'll always vote for the NDP. If I can, I'll volunteer for the NDP because if they can get into power, we can get a few things that Canada should probably have had a long time ago. But that's just basic short-term stuff, and it's the least you can do is to do that. But I don't get super emotionally invested in their success or anything like that, because having that kind of parasocial relationship with a political party is super unhealthy. All right. I like imagining Tristan's story about wasps with the actual white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Just a bunch of them chasing him and his coffee down the road. Yup. The more trans characters, the better. It normalizes more diversity rather than just defaulting to cis het white characters. No type of character needs to be justified to be there. All people are. Yeah. I've had some discussion about stuff like this because, I've asked people about, hey, I want to have a trans NPC in my D&D game. What should I do? And the response that I've got has always been, just be, treat them like they're normal people. And if something relevant to the trans experience comes up, you can mention it, but don't try to stigmatize it. Don't try to force this acknowledgement of it, because in the end, trans people, like all people, want to live in a world where they're just treated like people, like everyone else, just accepted for who they are. Hey, Foobs. No system's ever going to be fail-safe. There's always going to be people who are really good at playing the system. Yeah. Let's see. See, the thing is, when it comes to, anarchists and voting, anarchists at the end of the day are practical people. Anarchism, as opposed to, Marxism, puts an emphasis on praxis. And so that sort of thing is there's an emphasis on not so much worrying about the theory about whether this is theoretically correct. It's about just doing things that would just just get shit done. And if something small like a vote will help people, then do it. If not, if a vote will help people, do it. That's but don't the problem that I always have is the people who think that voting is the beginning and end of all political activism you need to do, and that is certainly wrong. What makes a society colonize and conquer other lands? A while ago, I had this idea with an alternate history timeline where people in medieval Britain discover a portal to an alternate universe with no people. Presuming they were willing to go through it all, would people in the Middle Ages have been particularly interested in colonizing another world? I know people from the early modern period would have been. I was thinking different in the Middle Ages. Not really. I think that you can see the beginning of I think there's a connection because there's something unique about Christianity specifically, because Christianity is a religion, is like, I think like the only religion on earth that is actually like that is actually invested in its own like propagation. Like Christianity is the only religion that openly has like, you need to go to other places and you need to expand your religion to other people. And so, and like that, like the first bits of colonization that happened in like Hispaniola and stuff like that had to do with spreading, like Christianizing and spreading, or at least that's like what they thought they were doing. And but then like very soon after, it became apparent that like, hey, because like in the past they would just have gone to a place, killed people, raided, stolen a bunch of shit, and then left. But like what made them like stay and start colonies and stuff like that, that was, I think, the Christianization project, as least it began as that. But then they realized that, man, this is a way for them to make a shit ton of resources. And that sort of built from there, and it turned into a less religious project. But like if you look at like early Spanish colonization, like the colonization of like the Canarias Islands and stuff like that, you definitely can see some evidence that that's part of it. Yeah. Not to say that other religions don't propagate, but no, I don't think there's any other religion that has like, you must become a fisher of men in their holy text. I've recently become more uneasy with the fact that my mom is friends with a policewoman. How should I think about that? I don't know. It's tough. You don't. There's like, you know, there's always going to be a strain between like what you think is right and wrong, and what kind of things you need to kind of tolerate to, you know, not completely fuck up your life. And that's a decision that you kind of have to make for yourself. The other day I was watching All the Way, that biopic where Bryan Cranston plays LBJ. There's a bit in there where someone uses the word liberal to refer to progressive Democrats. Was using liberal as a synonym for progressive a thing in the early 60s? I think it was. The only thing is, I think that liberal wasn't so much tied to political parties back then. Like there were still, in like the 1960s, there were still some liberal Republicans. Sort of, the Nixon administration sort of pushed them out of the party, and then, yeah, the more conservative takeover. So you think that people who cannot, under any reasonable circumstance, be rehabilitated or be allowed to integrate into this? Oh, yeah, this is just them continuing their conversation. Do you think Kennedy would have become a neoliberal if he had lived into the 80s and 90s? Probably. I have no idea, though. Okay. Let's see. Looking for some more questions. There's so many of you here. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I appreciate it. They will probably blame the left or Bernie. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's. I'm thinking that in the case of like an electoral college victory without a popular vote victory, that it's not so much like the Democratic representatives that are going to be mad as it is like the people who typically vote for the Democrats are going to be more pissed off. Like I think you could probably see an escalation of protest and anger about electoral reform becoming a thing if we have 2 elections in a row where the Republicans win despite getting less votes. Let's say that Biden does the West Coast states to threaten to secede. Would the state of Jefferson also try and break away from those West Coast states? I don't know. I don't know what the organizational situation with Jefferson is at this point. I don't know where they are right now. How random was COVID? If you could like redo the last 24 months over and over, do you think you would find the virus just doesn't mutate and jump to a lot of humans other than most timelines? No, I think like the thing is like COVID was not a thing that like it was sort of expected. The thing about COVID is that like like one of the conspiracy theories is that COVID happened with like the people who try to say that COVID is a biological weapon, they tend to make the argument like, well, look, it happened in Wuhan, and Wuhan just happens to be where the Chinese government has like this state-of-the-art epidemic research lab. And it's like, no, that's not a coincidence, but it's also not a conspiracy, because the reason why there's a research lab there is because there are, like, if anyone remembers, back in like 2003, there was SARS. And I think SARS came from the same sort of batch of animals that crossed over to humans as COVID did. And so like they knew that there was a strain of coronavirus that was in the local bat population that had a high potential for crossing over to humans because it had in the past. And so I think that there's a it's pretty reasonable to assume then that at some point there would have been a coronavirus COVID outbreak, especially because so much more resources went into like everybody. It seems like if you look at like the pandemic response people, everybody was thinking that the next big pandemic was going to be a flu. And they didn't anticipate it was going to be a coronavirus. And so like much more emphasis was about like handling like flu vaccines and stuff like that. And having it be a coronavirus was like sort of a surprise. But I think that it was a matter of time. Was there anybody to the left of Peter Kropotkin in world history? I don't know. Possibly. What does it say about leftist viewers when you realize the most successful breadtubers and left streamers are white? What does it say about the viewers who seem to prefer white content creators over African American ones? Sure, it's easy to blame the algorithm, but at some point the consumers and media have to realize that they're making a conscious decision on who to watch. Yeah, I definitely would say that. I would also say that there's a class aspect. Like, in our world, being black is basically a marker of class, almost entirely. And so being black means that there's a higher chance that you are going to suffer poverty and such. And definitely being successful on YouTube and being able to go and get, an unreasonable amount of education and being able to do the kinds of things that turn you into a breadtuber. So I'm thinking that a lot of breadtubers are people who went to grad school or went to university and then found themselves, in jobs that didn't really activate a lot of the stuff that they had learned. And I think that a lot of that all comes from the fact that, I imagine if you were to ask a lot of breadtubers, they also come from pretty, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot can come from pretty stable class backgrounds. And in which case, that means that there are, it's definitely going to skew more white because of, the racism baked into the kind of class hierarchy of North America. And yeah, I think that and that of course has reciprocal things, because the superstructure of our society, privileging white people and white voices means that eventually we're going to take black voices less seriously, and that's a serious problem, and that's something that we need to address and look at. And so yeah, it shows that we are ourselves no exception to we are no exception to the racialized hierarchy of our society, and hopefully we can tear that down. And one of the ways that we can is by trying to promote and elevate black voices in our community when they do show up. Let's see. Where are we? We are okay. I'm just scrolling through the chat. I'm very far behind. I'm sorry, friends. This always happens. But you got so many of you want to ask me things, and I don't want to miss out on any. This might be a dumb question, but are you Canadian, and have you studied all kinds of history, or are you an American that moved to Canada? I am Canadian. I'm not an American that moved to Canada, but I am my graduate work is focused on American history. So, like, the reason why I talk about the United States is so much in my research is because I have my I try not to talk about things that I don't know anything about, and my master's degrees are in American cultural studies and American history, and I was ABD on a PhD on American history before I dropped out, and so it's just like it's a lot of what I know. So I just got a lot of education on the subject. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Benjamin Harrison was the presidency between the two Grover Clevelands. Oh boy. Just scrolling through the chat right now to see if I can find another question. Here we go. If Biden wins, will it help progressives push their agenda? I'm hopeful because in the last midterm election in Florida, the GOP candidate for governor won, while the Democratic candidate for agricultural commissioner won statewide. So basically, down ballot candidates might help us in a Biden era. Yeah, I definitely think that should be the way that progressives are focused right now. Like, we need more, like, I think that the only way that you're going to be able to fight the Biden administration effectively will be to spend money or to get as many, like, Cory Bushes and AOCs and Rashida Tlaib's in Congress as possible, because yeah, that's the only way that we're really going to make it through, you know, or stop the extremely right-wing Biden administration from ruining everything. Tristan was mixing up William Henry Harrison and his grandson Benjamin Harrison. Okay, yeah, that's where I went. That was my mistake. I forgot that there were two President Harrisons. One of the reasons, like, I'm doing so many videos on this era of American history that I'm actually, like, really bad at knowing. Like, late 19th century America is, like, I'm really bad at it. Like, post-Civil War, before World War II America is stuff that I'm, like, not super... I don't know as much as I should about it. Would Canada accept refugees from an American Civil War II, or would they reject them and stay cozy with the fascist regime of the U.S.? My guess is that they would take refugees, but it would be, like... There'd be some sort of, like, paperwork bullshit, so it'd be, like, way too hard to get into the country, and we would take way fewer in than we should. Yeah, everyone's talking about, like, it's an extreme minority, and there was, like, Charles Manson. Like, what about that person? It's like, yeah, the fact that we can name every single, like, completely irredeemable motherfucker says a lot. There's a term that I like a lot that I think it comes from, like, lawyer speak, which is that exceptions make for bad legislation. Like, if you were to base laws, if you were to, like, structure your whole justice system based on the fact that, you know, there's a handful of, like, really, really irredeemable people, is not the best, like, it's not a way to make good policy. The U.S. wasn't involved in any wars the entire time Jimmy Carter was in office. Does that mean he's the only non-war criminal president? I have to check. I'm trying to remember much about the Carter administration. I mean, the Carter administration did get in shit with, like, the Iranian hostage crisis and stuff, which is, like, yeah. the what's it called? The Carter administration is definitely not free from sin, and it was definitely he was the first Democratic president that was like, hey, we should start moving a bit to the right and start getting into this neoliberalism game. Should world leaders pressure the U.S. to acknowledge the genocide of the indigenous peoples that were here? I mean, yeah. Should be. All the time. Okay. I'm finally back on, like, the original chat. Okay. I'd give up on Dylan Roof, and I'd give up on... And give up, I mean, the death penalty. You can't rehabilitate someone who walks into a church and guns down 9. Maybe so, but I don't really want to live in a society that gives up on people. Even because those cases you're talking about are so rare, and that I would be... I don't know. I don't really like the idea of like us having like a checklist of things. This makes you bad enough that you now need to be killed. I don't ever want to be in that position. The Iran-Iraq War in 1980, U.S. was involved. Yeah, there was that. Okay. Suppose someone, by some miracle, would get Medicare for All under a Harris administration. Do you think the Republicans would be dumb enough to run repealing it? If yes, do you think that their base would be dumb enough to go for it? I don't... If they had enough time that it was set up, and it was not a means tested, but a truly universal program, I think that Medicare for All would be too popular to take back once it's in place. That's why, I think that's why, like, the Democrats are like they basically like just like nuked like from like they almost ruined their, they almost actually, depending upon how you look at it, they might have ruined their chances of getting elected in 2020 because in order to stop Medicare for All. Because they know that once it gets in place, it's going to be so popular that there's no way of going back. And I think that is a more dangerous thing to many of the Democrats than the idea of Donald Trump getting reelected. And so I think that they actively made the decision to lower their chances of winning the election in order to preserve private health care. Because private health insurance is so responsible for filling the war chests of the Democratic Party that to not have health insurance industry giving them money will put them behind when it comes to like fundraising targets and stuff like that. Yeah, when it comes, Sir Zhao Zhao, you should, when talking about the trans question, you should probably bring it up again in like 2 weeks when I've got Mia back. Or yeah, talk to your friends. That's also a good idea. How do you write a trans person who's a villain? Definitely not something that I can answer in a good way. Except the only like recommendation I would make is to not do what happened in Red Dragon or what happened in Silence of the Lambs. That is a bad way to talk about to make a villain who is trans, because it kind of like, you know, sensationalizes their transness as a way to make them a villain. You know, a villain who happens to be trans is a different thing than like the kind of fucked up shit that happened in Silence of the Lambs. Parlez-tu du français? Thank you, Zane, for the $2 super chat. And oh man, I'm out of practice, but Wayne, j'ai étudié français pour 3 ans quand j'ai vivé dans Québec pour 3 ans et j'ai étudié français pour 1 mois dans un programme de français dans le gouvernement fédéral. That is like that. I just realized my grammar is completely fucked up because I haven't spoken French regularly since like 2013. But that was because I just realized that my passé composé is completely fucking broken now. If you want to be good at a language, you should probably practice it a lot because you can lose it. Don't Canadian history programs all require work in a second language? What did you do? Yeah, that's been largely removed, and if it isn't, it's been dumbed down to like you have to pass a really basic test. That requirement, like to get like a PhD in history, you need to have a second language. Is it's an older requirement that's kind of gone away. I'm just talking. Okay. Let's see. I think the disability question raises really about how much onus is to accommodate disabilities. I think that accommodating disabilities is definitely priority number one, and developing assistive technologies I think is part of that. Because yeah, a lot of our problems as a society when it comes to disability are from the fact that our society doesn't accommodate people with disabilities, and is built to, and like in many ways, there's a lot of people, their disabilities would not exist if they just had a society that would let them do things on their own terms, or on the terms that they need. So like, it would not hold them back. Their disability would not hold them back if it wasn't for the fact that we have a society that just insists on being tailored only to able-bodied people. And that is a way bigger issue than like, you know, theoretical futuristic technology. It's like, yeah, I know this is like someone who has a learning disability. Like I have ADHD, and if I was, and I use assistive technology to keep myself on track, and there are definite things like, you know, medications and therapies, and, you know, certain types of jobs are just not really in the cards for me. But having a society like school, for example, is really badly accessible. Is not really accessible for people with ADHD. And you know, if you change schools so that they were more accessible, so that they were less based on like rigid timelines and you know, moving everybody along like the factory line, then it would be much easier for people with disabilities like mine to sort of make our way through things, but we don't, and that's where we are. What's a reactor chat? If you go into the Discord, there's a chat channel called The Reactor where people can put links for me for my reactor streams that I do on Fridays. Hey! Towley Towel 420. Thank you for following. Welcome. Welcome to the Orc Gang. Oh, we have another one. Thank you, Silverblue121. Thank you for following. Let's see. I was out walking and I saw an old person going by clothes and chest. Was either trans woman or non-binary. I didn't, but I wanted to go up to him and say something like, "This is a conservative town. You're awesome, brave." Would that have been a really bad idea? Yes. Yes. Definitely. Hey, you're different, and I wanted to point out that you're different. Is not great. I will say this. It's probably the equivalent of the fact that on more than one occasion when I've gone to the gym, I've had random people come up to me and be like, "It's so awesome that you're going to the gym." And there is nothing that makes me hate that person more, because that pisses me off to no end. Like, yeah. Oh, man. How do you feel about groups like the Socialist Rifle Association? Is left-wingers supporting the Second Amendment a good thing? I've been getting more and more on the side of we should probably not let the state tell us whether or not we should have weapons. And given the way that society is going, especially in the United States, all of the reactionaries and the conservatives and the fascists, they're the ones who have all the guns. And they're the ones that have the training with the guns. And leftists and leftists or at least liberals have made banning guns and not using guns and not having guns such a singular issue that when shit starts to blow up, literally, one side is going to have all of the weapons and all of the training, and one side is not. And I'll tell you, you don't win wars that way. If you had the funds to advocate for anarcho-pacifist over other variations, what would your pitch be? I would argue that anarcho-Marxists have huge egos with their leftist dialectics. So if you feel normal and live in peace, and join the pacifists. I mean, that's life. I would, if I had the resources to try and actually make a case for anarcho-pacifist thought, it's that the things that I think need to be really put into people's brains is that violence, there's a very common idea that revolutionary violence isn't consequence free, or is consequence free, and it really isn't. You're going to be sowing a lot of your own hatred against you by any form of revolutionary violence. And while, I don't think that necessarily means that it needs to be written off in all cases, it definitely means that you should be more considerate about when you're going to use force for revolutionary causes. Because, you're for every fascist you kill, you create a family of people who lost a family member and will have a not political but personal case in your own destruction. Another thing that I would mention is that revolutions are also quite a gamble. Oh.
Tristan, when will you release the scathing whips of my horrific love of map games?
Oh boy, I'm going to release it right after the stream's over. Don't worry. So the other thing is about anarcho-pacifism is that people are always advocating for quote-unquote the revolution, and I do have to say that there's a lot of gambling involved in the revolution TM. Revolutions have a long history of starting with really great ideas and getting rid of really terrible people, and then in the chaos and the violence, the most the authoritarian and the most strong will to power people rise to the top and turn the revolutionary energy into an authoritarian dictatorship. It happened in France, it happened in Russia, and I think in a lot of revolutionary violent situations, you seem to more likely have a chance of creating an authoritarian dictatorship focused precariously around a single person or a single political party. Then what you would get through some sort of dual power means or something like that. Should we let people infect themselves with COVID to help create a vaccine faster? As long as it's done with I don't know exactly how that process works, but I mean I think people, if they give if people are giving knowing consent to expose themselves to a pathogen in order to develop a vaccine, I don't see like that being wrong. Doing it because like someone's desperate for money or something definitely has a lot of like red flags associated with it. But if that is something that somebody has like, you know, knowingly consents to, then, you know, that's on them. Okay. Suppose Bernie had won and become president. Would it have dragged everyone else in the party to the left, or would they just go right back to neoliberalism as soon as he left office? I think that it would have Bernie. Like, I think that a lot of people in the Democratic Party believe in a lot of progressive causes, but think that the progressive causes are not popular, even though they are. And if Bernie won an election on progressive platforms, I think a lot of people would feel more actuated to believe in like more progressive policies that can actually win elections. On top of that, 4 years of Bernie being the basic leader of the Democratic Party would probably result in a lot of progressive people having more power in, say, like, you know, like when the 2020 Democratic Convention would have happened, the progressives would have had way more of a say about what the platform was going to be and what the like Democratic, like what the Democratic leadership's going to look like and stuff like that. And so, yeah, the Democratic Party would have had sort of like a takeover by like left-wing people in all sorts of areas that would have resulted in a much more left-wing Democratic Party, at least for a little bit. The surprising thing about COVID for me is that it happened right now, as in after a few successive years of increasingly bad flu seasons. Yeah, climate change is also part about how it's like getting worse. Let's see. How are we on time? Oh my. Okay, let's see. Virgil, thank you. Hope you're doing okay and healthy. Thank you, Virgil. It's much appreciated. Which is more unethical, eating calamari or eating pork? Calamari is not farmed, I don't think. And I think that it's probably more devastating to the ocean ecosystem than farming. But they're still not great. Thank you, V Huzzah, for following. Much appreciated. Welcome to the Orc Gang. I noticed what looks like Marvel graphic novels in the background. Amazing. I have several superheroes and superheroines that I like and would be considered people of color, Asians, and indigenous people. Cool. Those aren't comics. Those are Dungeons and Dragons splat books. I'll be honest. I have a couple graphic novels, but they're not in this room. They're in the living room. Why are there no social democracies with hot weather? I don't know. A lot of the places, like kind of like in the global south where it's warmer. Hey, thank you, Rage Quilt. Thank you for following. Welcome to the Orc Gang. Those places were colonized, and what's it called? Decolonization politics and stuff like that. I don't think it has much to do with like their weather or anything like that. It has to do with like the history of colonization in different regions. Which alternate history U.S. president would you prefer, Elizabeth Woodhull or Victor Debs? I would go with Elizabeth Woodhull, probably. The freaking socialist who ran for president before women could vote. That would have been pretty cool. Why aren't the 538 simulations fluctuating as much as they did in 2016? I don't know. I don't really listen to their podcast, and I think Nate Silver is full of shit, so... I don't really follow the development of the 2020 presidential model like I did in 2016, because I was a less intelligent person back in 2016. Would you argue that it's never ethical to consume animals, but that it was a necessary evil for humans to evolve? Would you support a U.S. law sanctioning countries that kill dolphins and whales? And should traditional consumption of pre-sapient species be respected when conservative capitalists lobby the Japanese government for the construction of more whaling ships? That's a lot of questions. Would you argue that it's never ethical to consume animals, but that it was necessary evil for humans to evolve? Yeah. I don't know if I would call it necessary evil, but it was just like a thing that we did. But today, in our day and age, we probably shouldn't be doing. Would you support a U.S. law sanctioning countries that kill dolphins and whales? Yeah. Dolphins and whales are critically endangered species, especially whales. And yeah, they have very high order reasoning to the point where we should probably start extending at least some degree of human rights to cetaceans in general, because it's very obvious that like they are basically a sapient species and we just do not treat them as such because we don't acknowledge just how like developed they are. Should traditional consumption of pre-sapient species be respected in conservative capitalist lobby the Japanese government for the construction of whaling ships? I mean, there's a difference between like the fact that like the Inuit can hunt whales while like Japan has to build more whaling ships to feed a capitalist need for more whale meat. Like, I think capitalism is the problem there. Did Canada take refugees from the Latin American dictatorships the U.S. propped up? I don't know. Let's see. How to push for progressive policies in Canada. I'm thinking of trying to join the NDP to introduce more leftist policies and run for office, but it feels pointless because my writing is like 90% liberal. Yeah, in Canada, it's real tough to push for progressive change because the Liberal Party is basically like the Liberal Party dominates Canadian politics so thoroughly that it's going to take a lot of work to undo that. And, you know, the only thing I can think of is keep pushing for the NDP, keep getting the situation where the NDP is threatening to overturn the Liberals so that the Liberals are forced to steal NDP ideas and put them in place. That's the only way progressive change has ever happened in Canada, is the NDP has a policy platform that's very popular, and the NDP comes close to overthrowing the Liberals in some provinces. And so in order to retain their basically one-party hegemony over Canada, they steal some NDP ideas to sate the masses. And that's the flow line of any progressive change that's happened in Canadian history, and I guess we have to just keep doing that for now. Yeah, sorry, we're getting close to the end of the stream, so just gotta cross a few more questions. Let's see how many I can get done. Would Bernie had so meekly bound down Hillary and Biden, wouldn't have been better for the emerging American left movement if he was more coy with his support? Maybe. Bernie's, I think, been in Washington a bit too long, and I think that these are his colleagues, and I think what he's trying to do, if anything, is he's trying to legitimize the left in the Democratic Party. And by showing that they can be a team player through his like support is sort of like the thing that I would think he's trying to do. I don't think it's the right way to go about it. I think that the Democrats are never going to be friends with the left. They're always going to be the only way to really win is to be brought to heel by the left. But I think that Bernie has a different theory of change than I do, because I don't think Bernie's as much of a Marxist as I would be, or has a different idea of like political power and stuff like that. I think he genuinely thinks that we can work with liberals to make progressive change when I don't think we can for the most part. That they kind of have to be, their hand has to be forced. Their ability to hang on to power needs to be threatened, that they need to capitulate to the left in order to get anywhere. That's really the only way we're going to do anything. Let's see. Okay. On Friday, the ousted political opposition leader of Belarus will address the UN to advocate for democratic reform in her homeland. Why is it okay to challenge the regime of Alexander Lukashenko and not the one of Maduro? Because, hey, Crazy Kaiser, welcome to the Orc Gang, thank you. because Juan Guaido, first of all, the attempt to make a right-wing coup of Venezuela. Here's the thing. The regime of Lukashenko is of an absolute dictator who has very obviously faked election results over and over again. This is untrue of Nicolas Maduro. The legitimacy of the election of Maduro only seems to be challenged by people who want to install a right-wing dictatorship in Venezuela. There are certainly things to be critical of Maduro's handling of things, but the person who ran as the opposition of Belarus is currently fleeing for her life because basically she's not safe and her supporters are being tortured in Belarus, while Juan Guaido, a rich asshole who didn't even run in the presidential election, the last presidential election where Nicolas Maduro was elected, has been going around to right-wing countries in the West and basically trying to convince them that he's the legitimate president, despite the fact that he stood and got 0 votes. So one is a person who is trying to bring democracy to a country who's run away. The other person is a person who is trying to overrule the democratic will of the Venezuelan people in order to install himself as a dictator. So that's the main difference between the two. And on that note, it is 2:00. So, man, this stream really flew by. You guys had so many good questions. Holy crap. All right, let's see who's streaming and let's see who we can go and visit. So, oh my. Let's go see. Who is that? What's going on the search?
We make a permanent part.
They're watching a video. Let's go see Lumiru. Yeah. Great Twitch streamer. All right. So I'll be back tomorrow night for Step Back Tonight. I might be playing Crusader Kings 2 just because I kind of won't be able to turn it off. So look forward to that. Everybody else, take care of yourselves and each other, and cheerio.